Shavua Tov, good vach. I want to share a story with you that's kind of old and kind of fresh. Around 30 days ago, there was a funeral that took place in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. It was the remains of a Jewish soldier. His name was Zachariah Boimel, an American-born boy who made Aliyah to Israel, joined the IDF. He was killed in Syria during the fighting 35 years ago, and his body was held on to by the Syrians. And during the course of the last 35 years, Israel has made a lot of efforts to arrange for the return of his remains and a burial to allow the neshama to receive its rest. But the Syrians, stubbornly or wickedly or both, refused to deal with this. And out of the blue, it seems out of the blue, his body was returned by Syria a month ago, first week of April, and the family was finally allowed to bury their beloved son. At the funeral, there was a brief exchange, a conversation between the sister of this Zachariah, the soldier, and a visibly shaken Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu. The chief rabbi of Tzfat tells the following story of what that conversation was. Right after the funeral, the sister of Zachariah turned to the Prime Minister and said, "You should know, Prime Minister, for the last 35 years, our family has had a very, very deep grudge, a very great feeling of anger and resentment against the government and the Prime Minister for not doing enough to bring back our brother and allow him his final rest." And we were upset, and we did not mince words, and we did not miss an occasion to be negative about the government and its leaders. And around a month ago, 6 weeks ago, the family was together, and someone said, enough is enough. Enough speaking bad, enough thinking bad, enough feeling bad. It's time to be positive. It's time to quit this negativity. And we decided we're not going to say anything against the government, against the Prime Minister. We're going to look for reasons to speak in a positive fashion. So she's standing at the fresh grave of her brother, and she says, "You should know, we nursed a grudge for the longest time, and around 6 weeks ago, we decided to drop it." The Prime Minister was very shaken, and he responded by saying, "You should know that in the last 2 months, we did a very, very big favor by sharing intel with the Russian government, which prevented some kind of a catastrophe taking place on their soil. And we both knew that the Russians owed us something as a reward, a payback for what we had done. And therefore I met with many members of the cabinet to decide what are we going to ask from the Russians as a payback. And we discussed various priorities, what we want from them. As you know, Russia has a lot of power in Syria. And we came up with 3 things to request from them in an order of priorities. You know, in the best of worlds, we get all 3. If not, we take, these are the 3 things you want to ask them. And he said to her, "You should know your brother was not anywhere even mentioned in this discussion." I flew to Russia, and I was sitting together with Putin, and he turns to me and he says, I don't know if he said "Nu," but he said to me, "What is it that Israel wants as payback?" And the Prime Minister said, "I don't know why, I don't know how, but all of a sudden your brother's name popped into my head." And ignoring the agreement with the whole cabinet, with the whole government to ask for 3 things, I said, "Mr. Putin, we want back the body of Zachariah Boimel, our soldier being held in Syria. We want him back for a Jewish burial." And Putin was shocked. He says, "What do you care about a bunch of bones, a body of a soldier who's been dead for more than 30 years? This is what you want? This is your favor?" And I said to him, "It's very important to us so the soul doesn't get its rest till it's buried properly. And yes, bringing back one of our own is our highest priority." After a second or two, Putin said, "No problem, I'll take care of it, but what else do you want?" And I went on to list the 3 things that we had discussed. And within 2 weeks, your brother's body was returned for burial. Prime Minister was shaken because he couldn't understand why that name fell into his head when he was negotiating with Putin. Now the sister and the Prime Minister felt they understood. Look at the power of positivity, the power of thinking positively, looking positively, speaking positively. I hope you get it. May Hashem help us that we should be positive, and we should have many reasons to be positive because the power is amazing. Have a great week.